Hi everyone, it's Alita. Um, I had a dream that I kind of need a little bit of help with, as far as maybe if there's any of you watchers who can help me out with maybe some ideas of what it could mean, um, what your interpretation could be. I prayed about it and I haven't received any kind of confirmation yet, but this was a dream I had 2 days ago. Um, I called it the Japan Brooklyn dream, and it wasn't really a great dream, but let me just try to get into it. I was there on a 3 week trip, and it was a business trip, and I wasn't sure what kind of business I was in for, but the word hiatus appeared, so I guess I was on hiatus while I was there. And I went to visit a family, a Latino family. They weren't my relatives or anything, but they just happened to be people I know. And they let me stay at their house. And there was a Japanese woman cooking, and she specifically made corn sausage dogs. So I thought it was strange. And she let me have a taste. I didn't like it. And there was also candy apple shaped items that she made. It looked like candy apple, but it wasn't an apple and wasn't candy. It was covered in fish eggs. So that was another strange thing. And I happened to be looking at my visa in the dream, the visa that I used to travel there, and on the bottom it said 1995 suggested retail price. So I was like, whoa, that's cheap to travel to Japan, right? So I didn't know what that means. So they took me on a tour. I didn't know what city I was in, but I wasn't in the actual city. I was in the outskirts. So they drove me around kind of like it was like the countryside, and we drove by the water. So I kept looking around out the window of the car, and everything started to look familiar suddenly. The buildings, the way the shoreline was, and I said to myself, this looks too much like Brooklyn. And the more I kept seeing familiar landmarks and signs or whatever it was, like it just started to look like my neighborhood. And I started screaming out loud. I said, this is too much like Brooklyn. This is too much like Brooklyn. And I was in distress, and I just started crying. I was holding my face in my hands, and it was miserable. And the weather outside was even just as bad. It was just gloomy and rainy and gray. So I just don't know what that means. But, I could definitely point the inevitable, which is the fact that, everyone's been having dreams and visions about East Coast tsunami, East Coast of water disaster of some kind. So, it's always about New York, New York, and you know what? It doesn't help to hear these things because I live right here. I'm at ground zero practically, so it's just not a good thing to hear about. But it's gonna happen anyway, so I guess it will. It's just a matter of time. But then the most unbelievable thing popped up right after that was a blank piece of paper. And I don't know if you've watched my 3-part journal series of my dreams and visions. I've had 7 M names that I've dreamt about before. And I had an 8th one now. And the 8th name I dreamt about is Moses. And right next to his name, like written down as a column, were the numbers 6, 7, 29. And I thought they were verses. They had to be Bible verses, but I just wasn't sure where. So all I could do basically was, knowing that the story of Moses was in Exodus, I looked up Exodus 6, verse 7, and Exodus 20, verse 9. And just an emphasis that Moses is the 8th person, number 8. So I kind of look up the verses and I read it, and I had never studied about his life. I didn't know exactly what he did, and after reading for the past 2 days, I was like, wow. He was just like Jesus Christ. So I just wanted to get into verse 7. It says, I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God, who brings you out from under the burdens of Egyptians. So this is when he was telling Moses that he was getting for him to get his people ready to leave Egypt. And I was thinking to myself, does that sound like the rapture maybe? I mean, is that like the precursor to the rapture? Maybe. I'm not sure. So, and then I went into Exodus 20, and it's actually listing the 10 commandments, and starting at number 9, or I'm not sure if it's actually 9, but at verse 9 says, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. So obviously that has to do with the Sabbath, keeping the Sabbath. So I'm going to start at verse 8 and read up to 11, just to make sense of this. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger, who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. I mean, I see the word sea mentioned. I thought to myself, Sabbath. Maybe it has to do with the last 2 Sabbath days of the year, which happens to be Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, the 24th and the 31st. And the days of Noah, eating and drinking, giving into marriage, it's just, all these things are just coming up. These are my thoughts. So if anybody out there has any idea of what your first immediate thought was, what your reaction is, please let me know. Put it in the comments, or do a video message of whatever you can do, or you could even personal message me, and just let me know. I mean, this all came along like after reading about the tsunami clouds in Alabama, and I mean, obviously that gave me a quick heartbeat and a half. I'm just wondering, is it any day now? I mean, obviously it has to be a destruction of some kind, or peace and safety, then destruction, when the rapture happens. So, anyway, please let me know if anybody has any thoughts. I would really appreciate it. And I'm going to try to do another video. I would like to do a little Christmas shout out. So, I will speak to you guys soon. I love you. God bless.